What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video, and in today's video we're going to go back to 1990 to Captain America. Captain America came out in 1990 and is directed by Albert Pyun, I believe is how you pronounce his name, who's directed films like Cyborg with Van Damme, but I'm not familiar with any other of his work, and stars people like Matt Salinger as Captain America, Scott Paulin as the Red Skull, as well as people like Ronny Cox and Ned Beatty. I'd like to welcome you all here to another video. If you're new to the channel, I want to welcome you to hit the subscribe button and join the ride as I cover tons of movies, do vlogs, live streams, and all that kind of stuff here on the channel. If you're a returning viewer, thanks for coming back, and I want to invite all of you guys to please hit that like button and get your fingers ready to start commenting about this movie or this video, whatever you want to type on. It really helps the channel out. And let's get into my thoughts on this movie. The reason that I chose to cover this is because I kept seeing people on Twitter calling a lot of modern day comic book films the worst comic book movies ever made, the worst Marvel movie ever made, the worst DC movie ever made, and it couldn't be further from the truth. A lot of the movies that they pick tend to just be films that, you know, had a little bit of a discourse when they came out recently, something like Wonder Woman 84 or Morbius even, which I would say is probably the weakest of the modern day comic book films that I've recently seen. But I think a lot of times people forget where these films came from and some of the films that I grew up with. You know, as a kid, I always loved comic book stuff, whether it was the cartoons, the video games, the comic books themselves, and the various movies that were starting to come out as I was a kid. You know, once I was pretty young already, like 7, 8, is when I started to get, you know, the original Spider-Man trilogy with Sam Raimi, the original X-Men trilogy, and we started to get some better ones. Blade had already been out, but a lot of the movies I was watching on TV or that I had access to watching as a kid were things like this, 1990s Captain America, or thankfully things better like the 1989 Batman with Michael Keaton, as well as Batman Returns, and the following ones that, you know, aren't the greatest but are at least enjoyable compared to things like this. Captain America 1990 for me is definitely a runner-up for one of the worst movies ever made in the comic book movie genre. A lot of times people talk about movies today and I feel like they just don't know where the genre has come from and which films are truly horrible in this genre. So when I hear people call modern day films like a Wonder Woman 84 the worst comic book film ever made, I just can't help but think you clearly have not seen very many comic book films that were made before the MCU, the DCEU, or where we are with modern day comic book films or films today in general. So when you go back and you find little gems like this one, or things like the Japanese Spider-Man TV movie, there's even an older TV Captain America movie at a certain point, there's plenty of these characters that are absolutely horrible on screen, or even random movies like the 2005 Man-Thing or Swamp Thing from back in the day as well. These are all random comic book movies that people don't really think about anymore that easily would take the title as one of the worst comic book movies of all time, but people want to, for some reason, nominate some of the better made films that we're getting in modern day. I'd like to also thank my guest in this video, my buddy Crosby Critic. We're going to be hearing from him in just a little bit, but a big thanks to him for being here in this video. And as usual with all of my guests, you can find the link to his channel down below in the description box. Go give him some love, let him know I sent you. But for now, let's go ahead and get into my initial thoughts on this movie. If you can't already tell, I think this is a bad movie, and I think without a doubt, this is one of those movies that, again, can take the title of the worst comic book movie ever made. That's really what inspired this video and this rewatch. And I actually found the movie on YouTube. You can watch it in its entirety on YouTube. It's not in the greatest quality, but it's present. It's there. If you type in Captain America 1990, it's going to be one of the first things that pops up. And I was initially going to watch it in that format, but I wanted to watch it on my TV in nice HD, so I ended up actually seeking out the collector's edition Blu-ray to add to my collection. Spent about $30 with taxes on this Blu-ray, and yeah, it was not worth it whatsoever. But at least it's in my collection now, and I can at least just kind of laugh every time I see it up there on the bookshelf. Yeah, this is a movie that, again, is just not great. The writing is horrible. The performances in this film are terrible. The way that they characterize these characters, the way they bring these characters to life, just piss poor. The whole movie looks and feels weak. There's nothing about this film that honors the comic books, really. There's nothing about this film that really honors the legacy of Captain America, even up to this point. But I think there's a benefit to watching a movie like this today, because even though I can say it's horrible in all these ways, the fact that we have such good comic book films today, or much better comic book films today, especially films that feature Captain America as the title character or as one of the main players, with people like Chris Evans, who have obviously gone on to completely define the role in his own way, you can almost watch this film in a it's so bad, it's good kind of way. There were so many elements of this film that kept me entertained because of how dumb and stupid it is. I think if this was the only Captain America film to ever exist, yeah, this movie would just be completely dogged on from every direction. There would be nothing positive to say about it. And in a lot of ways, there's really not a lot of positive to say about it. But it's almost so bad that it's good, and the fact that we have such good Captain America films after this almost makes this feel like a parody. It feels like you're going back and just looking at a slice of time where they were making a Captain America parody, where the dude has a very cheesy, over-the-top, comic book accurate costume that literally has rubber plastic ears on the outside of the costume, isn't even his real ears sticking out of the costume. And then you have the Red Skull in this film that looks nothing like a skull. He looks like kind of like the Red Skull at the beginning of the film, but then later in the film he looks like this guy, and I just don't understand what they were going for with this film. Overall, this is just the most cookie cutter approach to doing a Captain America story. You know, Captain America becomes Captain America. Steve Rogers gets, you know, the super soldier serum and becomes Captain America. Like literally in the first 15 minutes, he's already in the Captain America outfit and going to fight the Red Skull. And when he shows up to fight the Red Skull, even though they hadn't even met at that point, the Red Skull is like, "Ah, yes, my American brother.
My American brother has arrived."
What do you mean? You never met this guy. You don't know who he is. How do you know anything about this guy? How do you guys know that you underwent the exact same procedure? This movie is all over the place, and it just feels like exactly why people had a negative outlook on comic book films for such a long time. These big concepts from comics that were just not adapted at all well to the screen in any way, shape, or form. Now, I clearly have more to say on this movie. I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to the Crosby Critic, and we'll get back to my thoughts in a moment.
That boy is our last hope.
No, there is another.
And now for our feature presentation.
Hey guys, my name is Crosby Critic or Trey, and this is my first time ever collaborating with someone, so big thanks to Anthony for this opportunity. So let's talk about Captain America. He's probably one of the best characters in the entire MCU. Chris Evans nails it as our soldier. He's a hero mentally and physically, always wanting to do what's right and fighting with his husband.
Take that off. What are you?
Genius, billionaire, playboy, philanthropist.
I know guys with none of that worth 10 of you.
He kicks extreme ass, and he can do that all day.
I can like this all day.
And he has a true knockout of an action scene in Endgame, if you don't mind me saying. We are so lucky to have the MCU and Chris Evans as Captain America. But for the rest of the video, I want you to pretend that the MCU doesn't exist. Every single one in the MCU lineup. Okay? Now, let's go back to when there were no cinematic universes. Even without building up to grand movies, we had good superhero movies like Batman.
You wouldn't hit a guy with glasses on, would you?
And Superman, until they both ran out of steam in their fourth entries.
I want a car. Chicks dig the car.
Stop! Don't do it! The people!
But before the 2000s, I think it's safe to say DC was beating Marvel into the ground, for better or worse. In 1989, we got Batman, which was a solid entry, but what was Marvel working on? Well, they were making Captain America. Now, you're asking yourself, was it good?
Speak for yourself.
No, in fact, it was terrible. I don't want to talk too much about it and take the spotlight away from my boy Anthony, but the one thing I want to talk about in this video is editing. When filming an action movie, it is very important that you're clear. Look at Mad Max Fury Road. It's a huge action movie with explosion, guns, cars, people screaming, big booms, but you can see it. It's shot in a way where the camera lingers onto the explosions at a specific location, and it never cuts away too fast so you don't know what's happening. There's a way to be messy with action and still paint a clear picture. In Captain America: The Winter Soldier, the editing is one of the best in the MCU because it stays in one point where you can see what punches are thrown and where they're hit, and never cuts away too fast, and you get a moment to process everything that's happening. Captain America: The Winter Soldier came out in 2014, but 10 years before that, in 2004, they made Catwoman, which had the worst editing ever. I want to quiz y'all and ask y'all what the hell just happened, but I know some of y'all are on the ground right now, so I can't do that. The reason why I want to talk about editing is because everything sucks about Captain America 1990. Literally everything. The acting is bad, it has horrible writing, a really boring story, and poor camera work. But at least the editing is good in the action scenes, right? No. Now, did any of you see what the hell just happened? Let's look at all the cuts the film made. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, I counted 1,000. Editing is such a top tier element of film. Without editing, there's no movie. Without editing, my videos would be cut with some random bull.
No.
You don't know what happened, and I don't know what just happened. It was probably the editors from Captain America who edited this part of the video. I'm sorry about that. With a story that's boring and lame, I thought maybe that the action would be cheesy, but look a little bit cool, and the editing would make it watchable. But if the editing is bad, then your movie can be unwatchable in parts, and this is a movie I will never watch again. You know what? Actually, that's not true. There are 2 somewhat action scenes that are shot good. It's just Captain America pretending to be sick and then stealing a car. It's really stupid.
Captain, are you okay? You
Pull over for a minute. I think I'm gonna be sick.
What are you doing? Wait, a door!
Thanks for having me, Anthony. Anyone who's migrated from my channel over to this one, make sure you check out more of my guys' videos and reviews. They're really good. Alright, everyone have a nice day. Peace out.
A big thanks to Trey from the Crosby Critic for being here in this video. Loved hearing your thoughts, man, and I enjoyed a lot of the humor that you brought to your review. Yeah, this movie is edited really poorly, and I hadn't touched on that on the first part of this review, but I have to agree, man, the editing for this film is atrocious. There are so many abrupt transitions from scene to scene. There are so many time jumps that don't even really seem like time jumps because of the way that they're edited. This is a prime example of how good editing can really make a movie, and in the case of this, really bad editing can really work against your film. Overall, I find this to be a very poorly edited film, as Trey mentioned, and yeah, I have to agree with what he was saying on pretty much every other level. A big thanks to him for being in this video, and you guys can find the link to his channel down below in the description box. I'm gonna wrap this up a little bit quicker because I don't have an abundance more to say. This is a really piss poor film with really weak performances from beginning to end, terrible editing that completely takes you out of it, and moments that are just seemed like a joke. There's so much about this film that is so cringy to watch, and again, things like Captain America's outfit not actually allowing his ears to stick out and actually being just fake ears that are on the outside of the outfit, hilarious. So bad, looks terrible, and it's just hilarious when you're watching it that they even got this far into making this film. Then you have Captain America's shield that looks like complete plastic from beginning to end, so every time he throws it around, there's nothing about it that looks real or compelling in any way, shape, or form. Now you're probably thinking, Anthony, this is from 1990, this was a different time for film and for comic book films, and you're right, but we had already received great Superman films and great Batman films up to this point, so it wasn't 100% undoable. This for me just reeked of somebody who did not know anything about Captain America and just made a movie based on some basic premises that they gathered about Captain America. They do follow the comic book element of him being strapped to a rocket that sends him out into some icy land and he ends up getting frozen, but it is so cheesy, that whole scene when he is being sent off from the rocket. He's about to run into this kid at one point and, you know, ends up missing the kid because he breaks one of the wings on this missile that ends up missing the kid. He actually redirects the missile and it ends up crash landing somewhere else in this snowy area. But for some reason, even though it's still a bomb, when it crash lands there, it doesn't explode or anything, and he just falls in the snow, like just a few feet of snow. It's not like in the MCU where he crashes into a huge, you know, ocean of ice. No, he completely falls just into a few inches of snow pretty much. His hand is still sticking out of the snow, and then he's frozen for the next few decades. The film truly is all over the place and is as cheesy can get, and I can appreciate a cheesy film of this era that acknowledges a little bit more of the corniness of the comic books. But, you know, outside of just being cheesy and entertaining on that level, the writing is just bad. The characters are just bad. When Steven comes back after all this time, he comes back to find the love interest from the beginning of the film who said she'd wait for him forever. Her name is Bernie in this film. We don't have any Peggy Carter in this film. And similar to the MCU, he ends up kind of building a new love interest with, in this case, her daughter instead of her niece in the MCU, which has always been a weird part of the Captain America narrative. But yeah, he comes back to find Bernie much older, and she's now married somebody. And now Red Skull and his crew are looking for Captain America, and they literally bust in and kill this woman. This woman was so happy to see him. You know, they have this nice romantic scene where she's like, I feel so old and ugly, and he's like, no, you still look beautiful. And if anything, that was like the one thing that was still working for me, you know what I mean? The romantic element between these two wasn't great by any stretch of the imagination, but it was the one thing that was kind of working for me. And then they kill her, like they kill her dead, like completely obliterated this woman who did not deserve it at all. Meanwhile, her daughter is still out there being able to go and have an adventure with Captain America, and she pretty much seems unfazed. This movie is all over the place with no real stakes. There's nothing about this film that has a beginning, middle, and end, and there are so many things that make you question, do you know anything about Captain America when making this movie? A perfect example is the 2 times in this movie, 2 times that Captain America chooses to fake that he's going to be ill, that he's going to throw up in order to steal somebody's car. The man does it twice, and I can't believe he does it twice in the movie. I can't believe he does it at all. I can't believe that we have a movie with Steve Rogers doing this. It is hilariously bad, and yeah, overall I find this to be a really, really piss poor film from beginning to end that is almost so bad it's good on watch. I would never recommend somebody do what I did and buy the Blu-ray for this, because you'd probably be super disappointed unless you're into collecting physical media like myself and you want to try to collect a bunch of the comic book movies. On that level, then sure, go ahead and get your copy of the collector's edition of 1990's Captain America. I found it on Amazon. But outside of that, yeah, this is a movie with really weak performances from beginning to end, a very laughable story that's so hollow and has pretty much no legs to it. It feels actually like an abomination. The narrative feels structurally like something with multiple legs. Maybe one of its legs is coming out of its arm socket. Its head might have 3 heads on it, and they have a head coming out of their nipple. Yeah, if that sounds really strange, that's pretty much the narrative structure of this film. It is all over the place, and the way that they characterize these characters is just, it's laughable. It's laughable from beginning to end. The second the movie ended, my fiance and I were like, yep, that was that was pretty bad. And I can't agree with that overall feeling anymore, even now, a day after having finished watching the film. This is a super weak film. There's nothing about it that really captures me. There's nothing about it that really is entertaining on a huge level. This is a it's so bad it's good watch, and it's not a film that I would even say is worth watching on that level. If you're a fan of Captain America though, check it out, maybe just on the sense of like seeing such a bad interpretation of it. It'll really help highlight how good the MCU portrayal of Captain America has been up to this point, and everything that they did with his character in his solo films and in the ensemble films. So a big thanks to you guys for watching. Hit that like button, comment your thoughts, subscribe for more videos, and go ahead and give my buddy the Crosby Critic a follow down below in the description box, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.